European Union leaders have announced sanctions against Belarus after it forcibly diverted a Ryanair flight and arrested a dissident journalist. The measures were agreed on at a summit in Brussels. Member states decided to take the following steps. Well, Belarusian airlines will be banned from using EU airspace and airports. Economic sanctions and travel restrictions will be imposed on a number of individuals linked to the plane's diversions. And a €3 billion EU investment package for Belarus will remain on hold. Now, the European Council is demanding the immediate release of detained journalist Roman Protasevich. His supporters fear for his safety.
This
is the beginning of a highly contested video. Dissident journalist Roman Protasevich appears in front of a camera after his detention by Belarusian authorities. The video was posted Monday evening to a pro-government social media channel. Protasevich is saying that he is in good health. At the end of the video, he is, quote, confessing to organizing mass disturbances in Minsk. But Protasevich's supporters, such as exiled opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, believe the video was made under duress.
He said that he is being treated lawfully, but he is clearly beaten and under pressure. There is no doubt that he may be tortured. He was taken hostage.
The EU was firm in its response, introducing punitive measures against the regime in Minsk. Top of the list, banning Belarusian airlines from European skies. The EU is also slapping sanctions on those responsible for Protasevich's abduction. Western powers have widely condemned the incident, including NATO.
The forced landing of a passenger flight by Belarus was dangerous and unacceptable. This is a state hijacking and demonstrates how the regime in Minsk attacks basic democratic rights.
On Sunday, Roman Protasevich was traveling from Greece to Lithuania on a Ryanair plane. The commercial flight he was on was rerouted on its way to Vilnius and then escorted to Minsk by a Belarusian warplane, allegedly because of a bomb threat. But no explosives were found on the aircraft. As a co-founder and former editor of the Nechta channel on Telegram, Protasevich used his influential voice to roil Alexander Lukashenko's regime. He now faces up to 15 years in prison.
Let's take a closer look at this with Franka Fechorka. He's an advisor to Belarus's opposition leader, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. Welcome to DW. What do you make of this video?
So I think he spent 24 hours in Lukashenko's custody in the hands of KGB. And this confess in the video, this is the result of the pressure, of the psychological, potentially physical pressure. We know that KGB, I saw this video already in August and September when thousands of Belarusians got detained after mass marches. And I must assure you that the Belarusian KGB can force you to tell whatever they want.
Right, so as far as you're concerned, this is worthless because this is a forced confession.
Exactly. And the good thing about this is that he is alive. We heard and we saw that he is alive. He's not very healthy, and definitely his life is still under threat. I think Roman Protasevich is doing the right thing when he is speaking what they wanted him to say. Otherwise, he can be physically intimidated. Always, when we speak about hostages' safety, hostage must follow what the criminal is doing. Our goal is to release him as soon as possible and to make sure that those who captured the hostage will pay high price.
How much do you think the EU's sanctions will help to get him free?
What we saw, it was the wake-up call for international community, for the European Union and the United States. Lukashenko was using the lack of reaction from the West for many years. It created the feeling of impunity. He was arresting opponents. He was cracking down on media. He was detaining journalists. And right now, after the plane situation happened on Sunday, we saw very quick reaction of Brussels, of Berlin, of Washington, of London. This is a very good sign. But only closing the airspace is not enough. It's very important to isolate Lukashenko's regime politically and diplomatically. It's very important that all perpetrators, judges, prosecutors, all those who organize the special operation, they will be punished. And it's very important to discuss economic sanctions, but also international investigation and tribunal.
Right. So those would be your priorities. And you would call on the EU to do that now, or would you like to see them wait and see if this actually has any effect?
We call on the EU to act now, to act quickly, to act bravely. Enough is enough. Lukashenko shows that he neglects all the rules, all the regulations. It's very good that the EU reacted right now, but in order to stop the regime, the strong action, joint effort needed between all major stakeholders. Because now it's not the domestic political issue of Belarus only. This is the threat to entire Europe. And this is why action, isolation of the regime, is important today.
Thank you so much for making time for us, Belarusian opposition advisor, Franek Fechorka.
Thank you.
Well, after last night's meeting in Brussels, German Chancellor Angela Merkel dismissed Belarus's explanation of the incident and had this message for the leadership in Minsk.
Roman Protasevich must be released immediately. All the explanations for the forced landing of the Ryanair flight are implausible. The same applies to his partner, Sofia Sapega. We are demanding their release.
More German reaction then from Andreas Nick, who is a member of the German Parliament for Chancellor Merkel's Christian Democrats. He also sits on the Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Welcome to DW. Will these sanctions from the EU cause President Lukashenko to release Mr. Protasevich?
Well, we certainly hope so. We demand his immediate release and also that of Sofia Sapega. What we have seen is, I think, an unprecedented violent interference to civil aviation in Europe by a state actor. Some have even described it as an act of state terrorism. I think this is totally unacceptable. And we must be very strict and very clear in our response to make sure that we don't see contagion of that kind of behavior to other authoritarian regimes around the world. This is totally unacceptable. It was the interception of a flight between the capitals of 2 EU and 2 NATO member states, and this deserves the clearest and strictest response possible.
But here's the thing about that response. The EU already has sanctions against Belarus. Nothing has happened. There is nothing about the sanctions. There is nothing about the actions of President Lukashenko that gives any indication that sanctions will have any effect. So where does this hope that this will help to bring about the release of Mr. Protasevich come from?
Well, I think the required release of Mr. Protasevich and his girlfriend is one thing, but we also need to be absolutely clear in counteracting against that violent interference into international air travel. We have now de facto turned Belarus into a civilian no-fly zone within 24 hours. Airspace is closed. Civilian airliners from Western Europe will not go to Minsk anymore. We've asked for an ICAO investigation, and I think this is a very strict first response. I think in a second step we will have to target state enterprises to a more severe extent, whether it's in energy or chemicals or other industrial sectors. I think there is still scope for very clear messages and clear measures towards Belarus. Belarus has now really made itself the ultimate rogue state in Europe. It is the only state not eligible for membership in the Council of Europe because it maintains the death penalty, which may hopefully not be an issue in this specific context as far as Mr. Protasevich is concerned. But this is totally unacceptable. This is an interference into sovereignty of EU member states and NATO member states, and we need to be as clear as possible in our response.
I'd like to get your reaction to something that we heard yesterday from Britain's foreign minister, Dominic Raab. He said it's very difficult to believe that this kind of action would have been taken without at least the acquiescence of the authorities in Moscow. I wonder, do you also believe Russia to be involved in this?
I have no specific evidence for that, but I think there is a lot of plausibility that also operationally this may not be something that Belarus has done on their own. And we hear concerning messages from Moscow in this whole regard. We understand that Mr. Lukashenko is in the hands of the Kremlin and has their backing, but we also need to make clear that this comes at a cost to everyone involved as well.
Good talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us, Andreas Nick from the German Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee.
Thank you.